Hello, Billy Reeves here, and welcome to the Kscope podcast. Hearty congratulations to our friend Paul Draper. The former Mansun frontman's album Spooky Action is out now on Kscope, reaching number 19 in the album charts, number 3 in the independent charts, 8 in the physical, and 4 in the vinyl charts. Before we hear from Paul, here from the album is Things People Want.
More respect to be the pool, a new car designer back to the nanny. Popularity in the community, more Facebook friends will make me feel happy. I never knew that life could be this sad, so shut up. One more purchase make me glad, glad. I'll make a list of things that I could buy to feel better and make me happy. Am I happy? Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Friendships that are meaningful, waking up with someone that makes you happy. Peace of mind, a healthy life, that's all I need to make me feel worthy. Don't focus on the things that make me sad, the things I'll never have. I focus on my simple daily life, list of things I will never buy. I smile up all the people that I have, the people that make me happy and happy. Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Don't focus on the things that make me sad, the things I will never have. I focus on my simple daily life, list of things I will never buy. I smile up all the people that I have, the people that make me happy and happy. Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same? Did I explain the things people want and the things people get ain't the same?
The former frontman of the chart-topping alternative rock band Mansun, Stephen Wilson and the Anchoress collaborator. He's on Stephen Wilson's new album, of course, Paul Draper. That's entitled Things People Want. You can check out the video to that on the Kscope channels. The album's out now, much of it written with our friend Catherine Ann Davis, professionally known as the Anchoress. One track written with Dominic Chad from Mansun. So I caught up with Paul recently outside the Royal Festival Hall for lunch in central London, and I asked him if he's ready for the Paul Draper comeback.
This week is the start of one of the 4 sacraments of the music industry. There's writing, there's recording, there's promo, and there's live.
Which do you prefer?
Well, of course, obviously for the past 10 years I've just been doing writing and production. You know, I haven't had really to do any promo or live at all. I mean, I did do a few little bits of things, but I think what happened is I stuck my head above the parapet and did quite a few interviews that had been offered to me to launch the Anchoress album. Because there's such a sea of music out there on the internet now, and then obviously Catherine's album rose and became a very critically acclaimed album. And then the pressure sort of came on me to do my solo album. So this is the first week of my promo, so I'm here in the centre of London. I can see the River Thames, I can hear the rumbling of the trains, and we're sitting next to one of my favourite buildings in London, the South Bank Centre, and I've just been down to Virgin Radio today to do my little spot on Virgin Radio. Now it's the Kscope podcast. Then I've got Yorkshire Evening News lined up.
Wow.
I've got
top gig.
The top gig, man. Yeah, and I've got BBC Wales about album covers about the Six and Portmeirion thing, and then I've got loads of other radio stuff, and you know.
Are you enjoying it though? I mean, is it back in the saddle?
You know what? When I first started this whole project, I thought, okay, I'll never be an artist again. What this is, I'm a producer now, and what I'm going to do is dig my old songs out from years ago and produce myself from the past.
Right. Okay. And that's been very much what it's like. But let's go back to the top. And the first conversation we had is that you said you weren't going to be an artist until Kscope got in touch and said, "Aha, there you are. Have you considered releasing a record?"
Well, they did, yeah. They got in touch with me, and I just out of curiosity, I said, "Come on down." They came down to my studio, and you know, I didn't want to be on a major label again. The pitfalls of being on a major label, you know, they can spend 200 grand on you in a few months and drop you in 2 weeks. So I liked Kscope, I like the guys, I like the philosophy, I like the physical product they made. And the packaging is beautiful. You know, they can do it as good as any label in the world, and that's why I signed with them, really.
The 90s was actually a really rich time for music, especially British music. And if you take the Britpop out of it, because the Britpop was essentially the pop music of the day, it was the Hollies and the Freddie and the Dreamers of the day. There was 3 bands of that period that I think were absolutely brilliant and are all still working. It was Stereolab, which kind of bleed into the 80s, Super Furries, which bleed into the 2000s, and Mansun. And I think those 3 bands, they were my 3 favourite bands.
The third album?
Yeah, very much so. And I think those 3 bands released the best 3 singles of that period. But, and it's not really a but, and you and I touched on this before, however, Mansun was so big when it came to the charts that there was this period where you'd have Catatonia at #1, you would have Sleeper at #1, you would have the Blue Tones at #1, you would have Mansun at #1. So in a way, Mansun were kind of tied in with the pop side of it, despite being a very
Do you know what we should have
arty band.
Do you know what we should have just signed to an independent label? We signed to a major label, so we delivered 6, which we are now reissuing next year, and is very revered in many circles. The most thing that's happened to me in music over the last 10 years is standing at the back of a gig and a lawyer, an A&R man or another musician coming up to me and shaking my hand and saying, "Thank you for making that record at the height of Britpop." You know, Mansun is a growing entity.
Yeah.
There's a few things that have happened in the music industry over the years that became growing entities. It started with Robert Johnson, then you got bands like Love, you've got bands like 13th Floor Elevators, you've got bands like the Ramones, you know, that just grow over time.
The album took a long time for one reason or another. To start with, because there wasn't an album to start with, so you can't. I don't know whether there is a sort of like starting point with it.
With
once you've got
Action.
Yeah, with Spooky Action. Was there a starting point, or was there a starting point where you thought, okay, now I've got a deadline? Where was the starting point?
Okay, the starting point was that because I never ever thought I'd revisit them songs again, I just backed them up to a DVD, just the Pro Tools sessions, and my studio engineer Ben took them home to record Match of the Day on. So luckily I recorded them onto DVD-Rs.
Right.
and they weren't DVD RWs. Otherwise, my album would probably be some rerun of Arsenal versus Man City in the third leg of the League Cup or something.
Fantastic.
But luckily, he didn't manage to re-record it.
Quaint.
I asked him for about 6 months, Ben, have you seen like we had the spindle with all the DVDs and the CD. Ben, have you seen that? No, I haven't seen it. I was like, Ben, I'm going to do this solo album. Like, oh right, okay, yeah, but all the demos are on there. Then it's like, eventually go around, find it in his loft. His mum put it in his loft.
When you were writing those songs, were you writing them for Mansun yourself or something else?
Feel Like I Want to Stay was post Mansun, and then when I realised I didn't want to be a solo artist, I wanted to go into writing production, took my studio on in acting. It went on the infamous DVD-R.
All right.
I'm not the RW version, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Or maybe we would, it's just have a different album. So there's lots of bits. There's bits left over, It's the end of Kleptomania. It was the start of my solo album. I eventually gave up the ghost and thought I'll never do this.
But this is before you met. This is before you met Catherine, and so obviously she came in to do her record with you. So what is her involvement in the latter material?
Oh, in the latter material, and obviously I've had the odd chord change and bits and bobs and stuff. But my relationship with her, we have a very just loose rule. If she comes up with the spark of the idea, it's her song.
Okay.
If it's the spark of my idea, it's my song. So these were my sparks.
Okay.
But yeah, she joined in on 5 and co-written 5 with me on the.
She's very talented. She's self-taught, but she does come from a kind of academic background as well. In fact, I think she's Doctor.
She is Dr. Davis, as I refer to her.
Is that a help or a hindrance? The fact that she's
working with Dr. Davis.
The fact that she's proper. I just wonder if she said, "No, I'm afraid you can't do that because it's in the incorrect key." Is she Lennon to your McCartney or the other way around in that situation?
She'd go for McCartney, whereas I'd go for Lennon. So I'm happy with that. Someone tried to say to us the other day that we were the Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham without the cocaine and sex, but I think she said no, we were more like the Benny and Bjorn of prog.
from Spooky Action by Paul Draper, out now. That is entitled Jealousy is a Powerful Emotion. It's becoming a bit of a fan favourite. That one before that you heard Feeling My Heart Run Slow. Paul's LP is out now. kscopemusic.com/PD for details. The tour dates are up on the website now. September the 14th, Leeds Broodnell Social Club. The 15th, Manchester Gorilla. The 16th, Glasgow King Tut's. The 21st, The Scala in London's King's Cross. See you there. 22nd, Thekla, Bristol. And the 23rd, Birmingham, the O2 Institute 2. That's the only one that tickets are available for, I understand. So if you want to go to any of the others, either wait for editions or wait for returns. Paul recently performed for the first time in 15 years at an in-store at Rough Trade East in London. He played 2 new tracks and a classic never played before Mansun track entitled Disgusting, all acoustic. Check out the Kscope YouTube channel and you'll see a video of that. An album which brings the best of Mansun, the best of Paul's songwriting and vocals, picking over the pieces of failed friendships and relationships with sometimes uncomfortable and brutal honesty. It's had some great reviews, this, many of them 4-star. Louder Than War said big melodies, intricate sounds. Uncut said a growling electro-rock odyssey. Prog Magazine, our chum, said a singular creative force. And Line of Best Fit described Paul's vocals as a set of pipes which stand out now even more than in the 90s. Thanks as ever for listening to the Kscope podcast. Do please subscribe if you haven't already on iTunes and spread the word. Lots more coming up this year, new acts. Keep your ears peeled. I'm going to finish this episode though with the final track from Spooky Action by Paul Draper. This is entitled The Inner Wheel. Billy Reeves signing off. Ta-da!
I need to think my way out of this. Is medication the answer, or is ignorance bliss? A diagnosis of anxiety and stress. The inner wheel is turning, changing gear in my head, cycling over and over with the memories I retain. To lose them is my aim. To stop the inner wheel and learn to live again. Was a stitch upon a hoax, led me to living like this. Medication's no answer, then it's ignorance bliss. Diagnosis of my apathy instead. The wheel stops turning, just a temporary blip, cycling over and over with the memories I retain. To lose them is my aim. To stop the inner wheel, learn to live again. Trying to figure this all out, cycling through the thoughts endlessly. Is medication the answer, or is ignorance bliss? A diagnosis of anxiety